Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy. Also writing is Jennifer K. Lambert, author of epic fantasy romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee, which is amazing, as always. Today is, say it with me, people, it is Friday. Woohoo! September 19th. And it's been a good week for me. I have been working away on this draft of Magic Reborn. It's coming along. It's not rollicking, but I have been averaging over 1,500 words a day, which is pretty good for the first week ramp up. Uh, and I've got over 7,000 words on it, so I'm pleased. Not yet hitting 2,000 words a day, much less 3,000 words a day, but still, um, uh, it's a good warm up week. Certainly better than I was doing when I started it at the beginning of August. And I'm starting to get back into the characters and so forth. This week was on Tuesday, the first time that new assistant Sydney edited the podcast. Interested to know what you all think. I know it's a little different. She added sound effects and so forth. I think it's great. It's different than what I was doing. There's outtakes at the end instead of having the random outtakes in the middle where I am wrangling cats or talking about New Mexico weather. There is actually sort of I don't know, a theme and purpose. She has little titles in there. So I think it's great. Let me know what you think. We're still ironing out kinks on getting it posted. I know I didn't have it on the blog yet this week. Still figuring out her logins and all of the places to do the things and so forth. My cousin Rebecca is here visiting. She's coming through town on her way to see her brother, who is in a nursing home in Tucson. Coincidentally enough, same as my mother, for those of you who pay attention to such things. But she's been putting a lot of effort into traveling to see him, like monthly, and this time she decided to mix it up, make the trip a little bit more fun, and come through Santa Fe. So she's going to do a little bit of touristy stuff, and she's going to do a yoga retreat, which sounds really great. I keep meaning to ask her. But anyway, she got in last night, and we had a very nice dinner, talked about family history. She is my mother's older sister's eldest daughter, and she's 10 years older than I am, exactly. So we were comparing stories of what I heard about certain events versus what she heard about certain events, and it was fun to do. I enjoyed the conversation. We had a great dinner at Fable. For those of you who are familiar or not familiar with the Santa Fe area, Fable is out here in El Dorado, and it's excellent. The food is always really good, and so that's my third time eating there. And all the people here who told me I should go eat there, I really love it. So that's another positive. I am finally more or less caught up on finances. I have to finish stuff for like setting up trusts, and I have to set up my new computer. I keep procrastinating on doing that. It's funny because on Wednesday I had lunch with Minerva Spencer, our monthly boozy lunch where we sit there and drink and nibble and chat all afternoon while her husband's at the Stamp Club meeting. I just finished beta reading her new book for her, the next in the Bellamy Sisters series. And she and I were laughing because she has also bought a brand new computer that has been sitting, a laptop that has been sitting in the box. And we were joking that we should have a laptop setup party where we would sit down and force each other to set up the new laptops. Why does that feel like such a huge thing? It's not as huge as it used to be. This is where I bring out my cane and shake it at all you kids on my lawn. But, it used to be so hard to set up a new computer. You'd spend a couple of days doing it. And I remember we used to have like a cable where you had to like transfer the stuff from one, because this was before the cloud. Oh, my best beloved. And it was an ordeal. Well, it's still an ordeal. But I need to do it. So maybe I will get that done this weekend. That would be great for me to get done. I have a number of things on my list like that, but the list is finally whittling down, and it's a good thing. The other thing that's really looming on my list, and I don't think I've talked about it on here, but that's what I was going to say, the Anthropic settlement for the authors like me who had their books ripped off illegally to feed generative AI. There's a settlement where we are to get $3,000 per book, and which is on the surface great. However, there's always a however, right? Well, it turns out that if you did not register your copyright for the book, then you can't get your $3,000. And yes, I am one of those cavalier people who has not registered her indie books with the U.S. Copyright Office, because I felt like it wasn't necessary, because you own the copyright if you just have to prove that you wrote it, and I can do that. So I always felt like that was an extra step. Well, unless you go to court, and then you need to have done the copyright. So if you've been living under a rock, which I partially have, but if you have, even more so than I, and you didn't know this, you can look up to see which books they scraped, and which I have not yet done. I have layers of things that I need to do on this. And if for my self-published books, if you didn't copyright them already, then you miss out on this settlement. But Agent Sarah advises that we go ahead and do it now anyway, because there may be more. The thing is it costs like $30 a book to register them, and it's contorted. Minerva said she went through and did one, and she's a former lawyer. She's like, I don't know how people who aren't legally trained get through this stuff. So, yeah, it's just going to be an ordeal because, as I mention all the time, I have 68 published titles. Now, some of those are traditionally published, and it's only for books published before 2022. But here's the rub, is that even traditionally published books, it turns out that some of our publishers were also cavalier, which makes me feel slightly better about my own cavalierness, that they did not register the copyrights on some books either. And there's a list of those that I need to go look at. So it's like this multi-step process. So the thing is, like if your traditional publisher didn't register it, you're also SOL, except for Macmillan, which is the house for Tor Bramble, and for St. Martin's. So, I have, 2022. I certainly have the 3 Forgotten Empire books with St. Martin's Press. I haven't looked at that list, as I keep saying, and to see if they registered copyrights on those or not. But they put out a statement saying if they failed to register copyright for our traditionally published books that got scraped for this settlement, that they will make it good through the company for us. So it kind of sucks for me, because if I had registered copyright for all of those books, then it would be almost $200,000 that I'd be getting. Maybe not that much, but still, alas. I kind of view that as like stock market money. It was really never mine to begin with. They stole stuff from me. but there may be more settlements in the future. So we'll see what happens. But I have to go register all those freaking copyrights, and I am not happy about it. And I don't know if it's like by title. So if I have, for instance, the Seasons of Sorcery anthology, and then I also have my story from that, The Dragons of Summer, that I published as a standalone. Are those two separate copyrights? I have to find out. So it's a big project, right? Yeah. I also need to go through all of my receipts and put in the last several months into my tax sheets, and also figure out uh, my receipts from book tour so that Tor can reimburse me for things like ride shares and meals, which obviously I want that money. So I've been thinking about I should try to prioritize things that give me money. It's so a thing that happened maybe at the beginning of this week. What is time? Is my first assistant, Corrine, figured out that we had not been getting emails through the website contact form, which go to her. She filters through that because there's a lot of spam and a lot of obnoxious stuff comes through the website contact form. And she just sends me the stuff for my attention. Well, the website borked earlier this summer. We had like a major attack on the website, and they ended up having to rebuild it. Well, sometime beginning of this week, end of last week, it occurred to Corrine, say, I haven't been getting a whole bunch of emails of spam of things through the website contact form. So she looked, and it turned out she had not been getting them. They had not been forwarding. So good news is it's fixed now. Bad news is it turned out only like six emails through there that were like really things I needed to look at and deal with. But unfortunately, one of them was from new friend who I made friends with on book tour, Nevo, and I really liked her. If you're a longtime listener, you know that we like totally clicked right off. And she had emailed me after through the website contact form right after Columbus Book Festival, and yeah, I did not see it. So I felt really bad because I'm like, she's going to think that I'm on Diva, that I just like totally blew off her email. So I emailed her and explained. I had to email all these people and have my little apology in there. And Corrine apologized to people too. But I, said, I'm really sorry and got your email and all this. And she wrote back and said, oh, totally understand. She's great. I totally understand it. And she said, I only get upset if people don't tag me back when they owe me money. And I thought, that's actually a great metric. It's nice to be home. My mother decided not to go to her high school reunion, so I don't have to travel for that. Hallelujah. And so I can just focus on finishing this book. The other thing I wanted to talk about today, and I kind of got drawn into, not kind of, I got drawn into this conversation yesterday in Pharaoh Society on the Discord by the delightful Lizette Marshall, who is a lovely writer and an even lovelier human being. And every once in a while, she'll tag me into their discussions of the week. And this one was on troubleshooting your career. And I knew why she tagged me into it, because one thing that I occasionally rant about, longtime listeners will have heard this rant more than once, but one thing that really bothers me about today's publishing culture, especially in the indie world, the self-publishing world, is that there is so much emphasis on the back end, the marketing, advertising, all of the things that happen after the story is written, right? So and after it's edited. So, covers and blurbs and keywords and all of this kind of thing. And so inevitably, when there's this kind of conversation, people start talking about troubleshooting as in, why am I not making more money than I am? How do I make more money? How do I level up? And it's it can be frustrating to me because there's so little attention paid to the front end, which is, what are you writing? How well are you writing it? Why are you writing it? Uh, because there are so many people now that are doing things like writing to market, where they look at a hot book in their genre and they essentially replicate it. And then the romantasy readers are like, why are there so many books that feel repetitive? It's like, well, this is why. Because they followed the exact same plot points and created slightly different characters or a slightly different magic system, but otherwise it's an imitation of this other book that did well because they're focused on, how do I have a best-selling book? How do I make money? And don't get me wrong, those are great things. I like being able to pay my mortgage. Uh, I I like it when a book is popular. Never the Roses this summer was the first book I ever had that hit the USA Today bestseller list, and that was amazing. And I never did one of those book boxes to get that because I always thought I wanted to do it on my own. I wanted it to be my only book, my only book. That doesn't make sense. My book, right? Just my book that got me there, not coattailing on anyone else. And yeah, Bramble put me there. It was through their efforts, but that was fantastic. I loved that, and I felt good about it. It was a great milestone. I don't care so much about having the badge as I wanted that milestone. And I think that's important for us to pay attention to those milestones in our careers because they're markers. They're markers of what we're doing well. And so when you're looking at troubleshooting a career, you're looking at more than just, am I as famous as such and so? Am I making as much money as such and so says they're making, right? Because we're always just taking them at their word on that sort of thing. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I would love for people to be throwing buckets full of money at me. But what I weighed in on was saying, thinking about what it is you're writing, what you're trying to do with your career long term. And I say this as someone who has been writing, working on building a writing career for over 30 years now, which is a little daunting, but there we are. Yeah, I started in 1994, and I've had several incarnations within that time, but that's kind of what authors do. Somebody else was recommending, saying, look at the top selling books in your genre, top selling authors, and imitate what they're doing. And I think that for the short term, yeah, maybe that works and people have made that work. But for the long term, you want to look at the people who have been doing this for decades, who have stuck through in the game, and they're almost always going to be mid-list authors. They're going to be authors that have popped up. They've had occasional successes, but otherwise they're going along at a very steady level. Because a lot of those hot selling authors, the new shiny thing, they are people who then vanished, right? They just disappeared after a few years because it's hard to sustain, right? You want to look at the people who've managed to sustain the career. And I was trying to explain this, and I was trying to explain how, um, some about how I wrote Never the Roses and what is really, important, looking at why are you doing this and writing something that maybe stands out instead of trying to mimic something else that's done really well, writing something that comes from you, that's like an expression of your creativity, that this is a way to level up, that you don't level up only by or even by spending more money on ads, that you can level up by becoming a better writer, by becoming more creative, by stretching and growing. And it was funny because immediately, and it seems like these discussions go that way, someone leapt on this and said, well, but sometimes writing the book of your heart doesn't work. And longtime listeners will know that I have complained about this before. I've never liked that phrase, the book of your heart. I would not call Never the Roses, the book of my heart, although I would call it a very special book. I think that the the book of your heart is kind of a precious phrase, right? Because it implies this like it's your baby, right? Well, they're not. They're our creations, and they become products. And you have to have that emotional distance from it. But so it's not the book of your heart. It's not this, oh my precious, the golden ring that you were crouched over obsessively. But it is a thing that generative AI can't write. It's stretching and growing. It's why are you a storyteller to begin with? If you're only in the business to create widgets, then sure, yeah, go copy other people's books. Why not? Someone was pointing out that there are authors who get into this thing of one for you, one for me, like writing the books that are popular versus the ones that they write just to please themselves. And I don't really know anyone who's doing that, so I don't know about that. But I do think that when we look at being career authors, and I say this all the time, I know, but there are easier ways to make a living. There are easier ways to have a salaried job with benefits. I wouldn't trade what I'm doing for anything in the world because this is wonderful. It's a great way for me to make a living. I can't get fired by an authoritarian regime, which is a real positive in these days. But it's a risky business. There are no guarantees. It's ups and downs. So if you're not doing this to like open up your soul and to create something meaningful and tell the stories you really want to tell, then is it worth it? I don't know. Something to ponder. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you on Tuesday. You all take care. Bye bye. Hang on, cat has to go out now.